Returning to Skyrim has been a very enjoyable experience, flaws and all. In the first 24 hours of my current playthrough, I've been absolutely sucked back into this harsh frozen wasteland. And while sure, there are mods that could improve the overall experience, like adding in sweet roll addicts, I journeyed to Skyrim the mostly vanilla way. I do have the Anniversary Edition though, because like the dummy I am, I gave Todd more of my hard-earned beans. Anyways, I started my adventure after being kidnapped by God Howard to remind you to buy not Skyrim. Then proceeded to speedrun through character creation and giving birth to the most basic yet jacked Nord in all of Skyrim. Then Alduin showed up and saved my ass from becoming headless, but leaving me forever doomed to become maidenless. Between the booming soundtrack, fire raining from the sky, the death, the panic, the despair, it all sucked me into a dimension that I can no longer escape from because of one simple thing: immersion. Before I even had time to process I was being held hostage by this beautiful monstrosity, entering the world of Skyrim has had me immersed in a way few games have achieved in recent memory. But why? Simple. See, the first few hours of this game made me realize that Skyrim is perfectly formulated to be exactly what our dopamine-addicted brains want, while barely being held together with duct tape and bubblegum. Oh, and Todd, you knew what you were doing here. After becoming forever maidenless, I found myself dumped out of Helgen, thrown into survival mode cause pain is fun, I guess, and then I finally set off on my journey. Naturally, I hit up the nearby Guardian Stones and get the blessing of the warrior, cause when you're a jacked Nord named Swolverine, it just fits. Then I proceeded to the nearby Ember Shard mine to get used to smacking around legions of bandits all over again. This was followed by heading to the absolute classic village of Riverwood, Bleak Falls Barrow to get that damn golden claw back, and naturally over to Whiterun for that extra hit of nostalgia. And once I got to Whiterun, that's when things started getting really interesting. One minute I'm exploring Whiterun, I'm getting into a drinking contest with a stranger in a bar, which might have been a mistake because they may or may not have been a Daedric prince. The next I'm waking up from being blackout drunk and finding myself in the Temple of Dibella in Markarth getting scolded because I did something I should not have.
Let me assure you there is nothing funny about going up to a nice, clean, unsuspecting urinal and then laying out a big fudge dragon for all the world to see.
This led to exploring Markarth, only to see some poor sap get straight up murdered live and in person in the market, which started a series of events in which a lot of people died. Only then I ended up in prison and somehow ended up escaping the inescapable Sidna mine in about 15 minutes. And all of these wondrous events happened through the amazing power of exploration. This is where the game has shined the most, because we're given an overwhelming level of freedom without every point of interest just being slapped onto the map for us, which in turn leads into experiences that are unlikely to be the same for every single player. And that comes down to how dynamic the systems in Skyrim are, because the world is not completely static. When you're out and about, you'll just stumble into different encounters. Sometimes this leads to quests, other times it leads to having to slap somebody around with a big hammer. Seriously, best part of the game so far. There is just one thing though that bugs the hell out of me, and it's this stupid compass. It literally just shows you whatever you want to find the majority of the time, and quite frankly it hurts the strongest aspect of this game. Don't worry though, I don't think it ruins the game, I just find it annoying. Anyways, despite this flaw, I still never truly know what's around the next corner, which is magical. But while the exploration is great and all, I found something else that hit me deep in my soul, and that's how good the atmosphere is. I stopped numerous times in my journey just to take in how gorgeous this game world is, down to having moments where I stared off in the distance looking like Thanos in Avengers Endgame. And honestly, I haven't done that to a game since maybe Red Dead Redemption 2. Whether it was taking in the golden rays of light shining down on Whiterun in the early morning hours, diving into the breathtaking Elder Gleam Sanctuary, or just being out and about, I couldn't help but notice how beautiful the world is, and how all the different elements of the game form such an amazing atmosphere. Then there's the soundtrack. Boy, does that soundtrack go hard. One minute there's relaxing background music, and I'm just having a grand old time seeing if the Skyrim space program is still a thing. Minor plot twist, it is. The next, I start hearing boss music, except I'm the boss. Also, I can't forget the environmental sound effects. When I went from blistering cold mountains down to warm, humid forests, into creepy caverns, then back into the arms of civilization, every single area's subtle audio cues made me feel like I was in Skyrim in a way that only IGN could truly describe. And while minor locations feel like they're all the same, the different regions in Skyrim all do feel unique to me. In the 3 regions I've spent most of my time in, Whiterun Hold, the Reach, and the Rift, everything felt different, unique, and honestly, I couldn't ask for more because not only am I a sucker for good stories, I'm also a sucker for that good atmosphere. And let me tell you that when every part of the atmosphere comes together, it's just right. It makes the world feel damn near timeless and alive, and it's as if in 20 years, we could boot back into the game and forget that it came out in a long-forgotten era of gaming. But you know what? Who are we kidding? Todd knows we'll be back. Now, if exploration and atmosphere is where Skyrim excels, questing is where things start getting a little bit rocky. Let me explain. One minute I was a ghostbuster at the Golden Hills plantation investigating why there were restless ghosts aiming to tickle my butthole. The next I was just bulldozing my way through an entire guild questline with no meaningful choices or build-up. Looking at you, companions, by no means do I feel the questing is terrible, but I've picked up interesting quests like In My Time of Need that were a blast to play through that had a hint of intrigue sprinkled into them. But then, many of the quests I picked up feel rushed with virtually no meaningful build-up or choices that have me asking the question, that's it? Many of the quests I've seen tend to have us go to point A, kill everything, or go fetch this item from me, turn in, rinse, repeat. I want more quests like In My Time of Need, where it feels there is no right decision, or The House of Horrors, which provides us an interesting close encounter with a pissed-off Daedra Lord, or No One Escapes Sin to Mind, because I really love the amount of chaos that caused at the very end. Seriously, the post-quest fighting in Markarth is wild. But don't get me wrong, I don't think the questing is all bad. I just find myself wanting more, and I hope I can find that. Of course, if questing has been rather uneven, for lack of a better term, then the combat, well, quite frankly, it's kind of mid. All I did was pull out a sword, bow, or magic spell and smack things till they died, and things normally died very fast. I primarily found myself just swinging violently back and forth rather than being engaged in a much more complex system. Though magic and shouting do, however, make the combat more interesting with a huge myriad of spells to choose from. However, really the only spell I've used for the most part is Restoration, because in survival mode, I've needed that a lot. Then there are bows, which I actually really enjoy using. It is so satisfying to hit someone in the face with an arrow and watch them ragdoll backwards. It's great. Anyways, I get it. Skyrim and its older brother Oblivion have never really been known for having particularly amazing combat. RPGs are not supposed to be about the combat. But quite frankly, the combat here is just uninteresting to me by modern standards. It gets the job done though, and at this point I'm honestly just complaining. But you know what? It's time to beat this next dead horse, because we all knew it was coming sooner or later. In my current playthrough, I've lost count of the bugs and glitches I've seen. The majority of them have been outright hilarious, like running into the world's thickest butterflies, bodies teleporting, or an NPC being yeeted across the map, while others, not so much, like trying to grab this mushroom. By no means am I getting crashes left and right, however, I've had one random crash without warning, and let me tell you, I got some good old PTSD from that. Another time, I got the weirdest visual glitch I've ever seen in a Bethesda game, and then later, I got stuck in a permanent black screen. Now, for a game that has been re-released over 3 console generations, you'd think these problems wouldn't exist anymore, except this is Bethesda we're talking about. I know this game is highly complex, but let me remind you, there is an unofficial patch made by fans to do what a company worth $3 billion can't. With the fact that this game has sold over 30 million copies and keeps selling more and more because morons like me keep buying the game over and over again, you would think that Bethesda would have made enough money to improve their quality control so other games that they make wouldn't have this problem. But plot twist, you already know. I don't even need to say it.
16 times the detail.
While the things that I find mid or irritating about Skyrim sometimes show up to crash the party, they are easily overshadowed by the things that have made the experience good. I've enjoyed every single second so far, and I don't see that changing as I continue my playthrough. Returning to Skyrim has been such an amazing experience, and if you're thinking about coming back or you've never played Skyrim, stop what you're doing and treat yourself to a magical experience. And speaking of magical experiences, check out this one. It's an absolute blast.